In the later half of the first phase, it did, as is witnessed from the mandalas 1, 9 and 10, which are the later portions of the Rig Veda. We find that the use of the terms vap for sowing and krish for cultivation is there. As also there are descriptions of agricultural activities like laying down the field, preparing the field for cultivation and laying down the furrows with plow, in fact. And we also have references to prayers for bountiful field and urvara kshetra. And then the term kshetra is there, which is actually, it has a lot of connotations in the early phase, but one of the primary is that of a cultivation field. So urvara kshetra and sita, which is drenched with rain, because for that would yield bountiful harvest, that is there in prayers made out to the gods. As also we have references to Kshetra, Kshetrapati and Kinasa, which are the terms reflecting on the growing man and land relationship in view of the development of sedentarism associated with farming economy. And the land which was supposed to be best was between the river valleys, no doubt. And in the early phase, since the Vedic people were basically almost settling down in the upper Ganga valley, we find that Bias and Sutlej are the two rivers which have been described and which have been praised because they make the adjacent regions very fertile for cultivation.
And ma'am, there were references for agricultural implements. Phala, Langala, Sira or Sunasira all stood for plough, which were described to be made of wood of hard trees like Udumbara and Khadira. Now, other agricultural implements include a hoe or a sickle or an axe.
Yes, and the only term for cereals referred in Rig Veda were yava or barley and dhanya. That must be rice, and there were also references of seed processing and food prepared out of the cereals and large containers or jars which were probably used for storing the grains.
You see, dhanya was actually probably also a general term for all kinds of cereals in this time.
Ma'am, was there any reference for handicraft production in the early phase?
You see, we have terms which are associated with the artisanry, and these actually give us some hint about the kind of non-agricultural production activities that might have been there in the early phase. For example, we have reference to Rathakara, who is a chariot maker, and Takshan, who is the carpenter, or Vayatri, which is a weaver, and or an embroiderer even, who is a patius. And there is also reference to the metal workers like Karmara and also Dravina, who is in fact, it's very interesting that a melter of metals is called Dravina. The special term is used for it. So these are various terms which throw some light on yes.
Yeah, and ma'am, what kind of reference do we get for the use of metals?
The term that has been used for metals is ayas, and we get this term ayas referred quite a number of times in the Rig Veda. But it is not very clear to which metal it is referring, because some scholars think that ayas actually meant iron, but it's not very clear. It might have been a generic term for all metals. From the descriptions, we think that there are certain items that had been produced which were definitely made of metal, like shura, which is a razor, and khadi, which is a kind of a bangle made of metals, and also asi, which is a sword, metal sword, and swadhiti, metal axe. Then again, there's a very interesting reference to the process of purification of metal in Rig Veda Mandala 4. There's a reference to, there's a simile in fact drawn between the purification of a man's soul and the purification of metals. Okay. But so far as iron is concerned, since archaeological evidence is available from only 1000 BC onwards, we think that the early Vedic people were not really using or did not have much knowledge about iron.